Hold on. We got to figure it out. We got to have a uniform shoulder roll by the
Right,
second conference in person.
right. Little choreography. I,
Right.
uh I was at an in-person event last night in Austin, Texas, and got to see
Oh,
Shoenka Rahim, who was our guest on season 1. And,
yes.
she was telling me about this fabulous, choreography she's doing with one of her new songs called The Black Madonna, and she's working with children in Uganda, and she was doing this choreography, so it made me think about that. I'm like, "Oh, we gotta call
Oh,
Shoenka because 'cause she'll give us some
yeah.
women connected in wisdom choreography."
Let's do it. Yes.
It would be awesome,
Yes. No, I love it. And I love that we stay connected. We have all
right?
these ladies. Now we're on season 11, guys. If you are listening, episode, what is it, 93? I know I just said it, 93
Yep.
and season 11. So
Woo.
we're going to start off strong, and I'm excited to be here. I'm really excited for our conversation today about it's in your bones, in our bones.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
physical
let's do
wellness.
our
Ooh,
official introduction and kick it off. Are
yes.
you
And
ready?
then we can go into the definitions. Yes. Hi, ladies. I am Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial entrepreneur and Amazon bestselling author, the founder of Shalo Glow LLC, an all natural handmade personal products company that helps people glow from head to toe. I am a champion for your self care, business care, and intentional wellness.
Hey, y'all. I'm Christine Gautreaux, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, best-selling Amazon published author, and dancing social worker who helps you upgrade your self and community care.
Yes, together we are a podcast. We are Women Connected in Wisdom, rooted in the 8 dimensions of wellness. And we're also the co founders of Women Connected in Wisdom community. So if you like to get plugged in, go ahead over to our website.
Right? That's at womenconnectedinwisdom.com. We like to get
Yeah,
together every week for intentional conversations about how do we be well in the midst of chaos? How do we do all this, right? And
yeah,
it's more than just one thing, and we like to learn from each other and our awesome guests.
absolutely. Yeah, and we kind of hit on it already. This week, to start off season 11, we're talking about physical wellness. And physical wellness is the ability to maintain a quality of life that allows you to thrive in your daily activities without undue fatigue or physical stress. Physical wellness recognizes that our daily choices, habits, and behaviors have an impact on our overall health, well being, and quality of life.
Whew. Like, even as you say that, my body is like giving distress signals today.
Mm.
Like, not to make fun of it, but it's like I've been
Mhm.
traveling, and when
Yeah.
you've been traveling by air and by car and not sleeping
Mhm.
in the same beds, and
Yeah.
I was when I got here back to my parents' house today, I like felt this little tug in my back, and I'm like, what is happening? Because I usually don't have that, right? And I think it
Yeah.
was from the car ride, but I'm
Mm.
also like, as you read that definition, it's sometimes like when people say the word chiropractor, and all of a sudden I know
Mhm.
exactly where I'm at and need an
Mhm.
adjustment. I think
Mm.
my body's reacting to that too because I've been off
Yeah.
routine this last 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah,
How
and
are
that
you
makes
doing?
sense. And same thing, especially with everything revving up, right? As I leave
Mhm,
the salary job, getting ready for the community and the book tour and all in the
mhm.
retail space next I used to say next month, now it's next week. Um,
Right?
it's all been stacking up. So really intentional and not judging the signs that I see, but what's going on? What do I need to do? How do I adjust
Right.
and try to be balanced, right? I love kombucha because it helps us with that digestive pH balance. But we talk
Mhm.
about work life Jenga. I guess we could say Jenga for wellness too, right? And just trying to
Right? For
pay
the 8
attention and keep
dimensions.
going. Exactly.
Okay.
Dimensional Jenga.
Okay, how
We'll get
fun would
there.
that be, right? I'm just thinking
It's not a bad
for
idea.
our offices, like, do we need to tug a little on the spiritual wellness, or do we need
Or
to
we could
tug on the
do
physical wellness?
a really big one for the in-person conference, but that's
Wouldn't
just
that oh,
ideas.
you know
Yeah.
it. You know my little maker space heart. I got
Yeah.
you. I saw
Right.
it. We can make it happen. Before we pull up our guest,
Yeah.
I heard you say it, but I don't think
Mhm.
we've told our listeners yet. Tell folks that are listening about your retail space if they are in or
Ooh,
around Atlanta. Like, how can they
yes.
come meet you and join you, and what's happening there?
Yes, so thank you so much for that. Yes, you guys are definitely invited. We are opening on Small Business Saturday at 228 Auburn Avenue. Super excited to be sponsored by Spark and Bank of America to be in the neighborhood. You know, Auburn Avenue is definitely historic in Black business. So when I think about we built rebuilding Black Wall Street and generational wealth and helping people in business, I'm super excited to be part of that and for all of the entrepreneurs that are going to come up through the Spark program after that. But that's going to be next Saturday, and then we'll be there every day after that.
What? Next
Yes,
Saturday! I'm so
yes,
excited to be there and celebrate with you. I can't wait
yes.
to go buy
I still need
product
to.
in person.
Super excited. And we have people on the list, so we're going to be there all day. Come out, and the specifics will be on our social media. So if you follow Women Connected in Wisdom, you're already connected to Shaylo Glow. If you don't, it's shayloglow.com, Shaylo Glow on all social media platforms. And if you have any questions, you can email me, and we'll get you the information that you need.
Absolutely. And are you going to have some books there too, my friend?
Yes, of course, because Shaylo Glow is in the book, right? If you do not know, my chapter is on physical wellness and talking about how I needed to be plugged in and didn't know how to take care of myself. So we were talking about it before the call, Christine, like where do I start? You know, so yes, come
Right.
get some product, come get the book and the resources in your hand so we can be intentionally well on a daily basis.
And we'll put all that in the show notes too. So don't worry if you're
Yeah.
driving down in your car, you don't have to write
Yeah,
it
we got
down.
you.
You can circle
Right.
back and on the website and grab it in the show notes. But
Yes.
I am so excited to bring up our guest today. Are you
Me
ready?
too. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do this, y'all. Dr. Candi Dugas is a New York Times award winning Sedona, Atlanta based writer, dramaturg, producer, and cultural organizer compelled to complete freedom. Every project she curates comes from the longing that lives in her breath to help make this world a better place, which includes investing in and collaborating with other creatives. Most recently, she wrapped an 8-day wellness retreat and conference called Building Freedom, which proposed that for Black US Americans to be fully free, we must intend to be holistically healthy and take all necessary steps in between to arrive at this kind of liberation. Additionally, she's producing for True Colors Theater their next narrative, TM Monologue Competition for high school students for the 2022-2023 season. Also coming up is a theatrical community event with the Morehouse School of Medicine Initiative, Fathers Matter ATL, My Side of the Story, The Black Father Shares His Truth. This is her meaningful work at the intersection of art, community, and social justice. When Candy's not making art or chasing freedom, you'll find this rare Atlanta native enjoying precious time with her daughter Jordan, other family and friends, and her dog Xena, manifesting dreams, being one with the universe, questing adventures, and making memories. Y'all, I am so excited to invite to our stage Dr. Candy Dugas.
Hi,
Welcome!
welcome, Candy.
Thank you. Thank It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I love that. So you do a lot, right? Like a lot of our experts, but I'm so excited to talk to you about It's in Our Bones and the True Color monologue competition that you have going on. I think it's so important to help the youth with their voice and everything that they have going on, especially right now. So I'll let you have the stage and I would love to hear more about what you have going on right now.
Sure, sure. So I think that where we start, I heard y'all talking about where do we start about being healthy and whole physically, as well as holistically, all parts of ourselves, is the awareness that we're actually unwell. And then the desire to do the work to be well. I think we take, and our bodies and our entire being is so well made. It takes a lot of abuse. If we think about all the things that happen to it before it collapses or gets some sort of big disease, there were signs along the way. It was a long time before it became a part where your body was like, look, sit down and take care of yourself before that happens. And so I think we are more often than not disconnected from the ways that our body might be unwell. And so once we are aware of that, then we've got to decide to do the work to be well. It just doesn't happen easily so much. I was talking to a friend of mine who is a talk therapist, a licensed marriage and family therapy counselor. Anyway, LMFT.
Right, a
And
marriage and family therapist.
there we go. Yes. And he was saying what he's seeing in his practice. I'm glad that people are going to his practice. What he's seeing is that people don't want to do the work. They're not really up for all that it takes. And as a person who has been doing talk therapy off and on since I was a freshman in college, I know it takes a lot of work and it's very uncomfortable and it's hard. And there are times in therapy that I have gone up against something. I was like, "Ooh, I don't want to deal with that right now." But what's more important for me is are the benefits that come from it and the health and the improvement and the wellness and the growth that I get from it. So I go back and I tackle it again. Um, and so I think that's important for us to know.
I love that. And Candy, you and I met through Alternate Roots, a
Yes.
social justice organization based out of Atlanta, but a Southern based organization. And I would love for you to talk about with wellness and your theater work and with the youth that you're working with, like how that all comes together. Because I see you do it beautifully and I know it does. So I'd love our listeners to hear from your voice, like how it all comes together.
Well, I'm excited. This will be my first full season producing the next narrative monologue competition with True Colors, and so I'm excited to see for myself how it's going to manifest with the students. What we imagine, what we're seeing so far in the early days of the residencies of our teaching artists going into our partner schools, is that the students are very grateful to have someone listen to them and to pay attention to them. Some of the more veteran teaching artists talk about how kids get attention because they skipped class, or they're not paying attention in class, or they're talking in class, or you're on their phone, or they forgot to turn in an assignment. We get the chance to pay attention to them for who they are. And so before we ever get into any of the coaching around how to perform a monologue well, we spend some time getting to know each student as a person. And, one thing that we know with any of our professions is that we show up best in our work when we are at our best as people. And so I really am excited about the opportunity to invest this kind of awareness in our young people, and pray that it goes a really, really long way toward the kind of people they will become as they grow older and mature into adulthood.
Yeah, I think it's so important, whether it's from how to tell a teammate, "Hey, I didn't like the way that you said this," or "What was it in that situation?" Or how
Hmm.
just the
Hmm.
verbiage in general. Being a kitchen manager, you deal with so many different people for different reasons on celebrations or somebody passing away, or it's a staff member or somebody that's come to enjoy themselves, or even as a person, of course, the personal side. There's so many different layers of communication and conversation
Absolutely.
that we have, to
Hmm.
where if you as an individual don't know how to articulate stuff, that can lead to a lot of deficits and lead to a lot of what you're talking about, being unwell in certain areas where you may have had support or could have had a resource, or maybe were in a better position, or maybe you weren't aware of the position that you were in because of lack of connection and lack of communication. So that's why I'm so excited about what you're doing with the high schoolers, because I think while they have that structure of the time, when they find out their voice and then they can go into the world and dictate how they use their time and make their money, I think having a voice that's been coached and been tweaked and honed will be priceless.
Absolutely. One of the things that we learned in our training with Jade Lambert Smith, who has developed what she calls uh, Lamoa. It's an authentic approach to developing artistry, and one of the things that we include in our process with the students is discoveries, connections, and inquiries. And so the reason why she includes that, she was telling us, is because a student can ask a question, and asking questions is not necessarily supported in every group. And so if a student asks a question and another student might find it funny and might snicker, then the student who asked the question will shut down and never ask another question again. But in this process of DCI, discoveries, connections, and inquiries, they get used to constantly asking a question. What did the playwright mean by this, do you think? What effect does this have on another character in this scene? And just constantly inquiring. And that gets them used to asking questions and gets them used to, as you were saying, Shannon, all kinds of responses that you may get from your question. And then the more aware of who we are, the more healed we are, the more confident we can be and engage in those conversations and ways of communicating with other people. So absolutely.
Yeah, and engage from a whole place. Somebody, Candy and I can disagree, but we can still have a conversation. Or if I need to take space and sit with myself that
Hmm.
night, then I can process it and let it go and keep going. But I
Hmm.
think that that's so important with um, I think about it like restoring our energy. You go home, you take a shower, you're unwinding, you're getting ready for bed. And I think about releasing all this type of energy too, right? The intangible energy that we were talking about before we came on. I think that's huge. And being able to articulate stuff, I feel like helps you process better.
Yes. Yeah. And the one of the other parts to the next narrative monologue competition is that these are brand new uh, commissioned pieces
Mm,
that the theater has requested of contemporary playwrights. So
so
this
what does
was the
that mean?
brainchild of artistic director Jamil Jude, right? So believing that we love our classics, we love all of the work that those who have gone before us have created for us. But what's today's voice? And I was on a call earlier today with the national NNMC team, and they've been talking about how the students are really appreciating that we have contemporary playwrights, some that aren't very far from their ages, writing these pieces that they can engage with about matters that they talk about among themselves, that they're concerned about. And there's a great possibility that any of these playwrights can pop up at any of their regional competitions and they can talk live with them about what they experience with these monologues. And so, yeah, kudos to Jamil and the True Colors team for coming up with this idea and making it happen.
Well, what I love about that too, Candy, is the fact that, traditionally we've used old white dead playwrights as the people that's the standard for theater. And I love that
Mhm.
that is changing. And I especially love that it's changing on a national and international level and how exciting. And I would be curious about your take on this because in my I have young adult children and I'm around a lot of youth and they're demanding it. I mean, they're
Yes.
like, "Come on, y'all, like get with it. We're done with." And I love that.
Mhm.
I just love that so much. And I had a question for you just because I would love our listeners to know, like, how did you get involved in theater? How did this become your passion
Mm.
and part of your wellness practice?
It started long before I knew that it would be theater. Like a lot of young people, I didn't go to theater as a kid. We went to the movies to see the movies, the talking pictures. Watched a lot of TV. But and I was an only child of a single mom, so I spent a lot of time around adults or by myself. Loved my Barbie dolls. And I would create stories with them. I'd create worlds. I remember one time my mom and I moved into a house from an apartment. So she didn't quite have furniture to fill all the rooms. So the front room, that would have been the formal living room or sitting room, was empty. And so I took all of my Barbies and all of their things, and I created this town, and I would create these stories. And then one year for Christmas or my birthday, I got a tape recorder, cassette tape recorder, and I used to make up songs, and I'd record myself singing, and probably what would be considered monologues then. And so I was, and we didn't have a typewriter in the home, and so sometimes when my mother was an English teacher, and sometimes when she had projects to do that needed to be typewritten, she'd bring home a typewriter from the school over the weekend, and I loved it. I just loved touching the keys, and I would write stories, short stories, and things of that sort on the typewriter. As far as theater officially, when I became a senior in high school, I had fulfilled most of my requirements. And so I was looking for classes to fill my schedule that I would get an A, not affect my grade point average or anything, wanted real easy things to do. And so I took drama class. I was just like, "Ugh, let's just take this class." And I loved it. Mrs. Linnell Chance was my teacher. And one of the projects that we had to write a script. And so I wrote my first play. Looking back on it, it was so awful. It was some sort of regurgitation of watching soap operas with my grandmother. It was something like that. Um, but that's how I got started, was with that. And I just kept, and I realized that my superpower, my primary talent in this whole storytelling world was with dialogue. And so I went to a predominantly white high school, Lakeside High School in DeKalb County, and we didn't have much going on for Black History Month. So, inspired by participating in the state of Georgia's History Day competition, I'd done some sort of slideshow for that. I've talked to my teachers. I said, let's do something for Black History Month beyond showing this slideshow. And so talked with Mrs. Chance and all of my classmates. So I wrote the script and we produced a Black History Month play, took that to college, did it there. Everybody loved it. And then every year for Black History Month, I went to the University of Florida, and despite the fact that when I was there were like 36,000 students and 2,000 of us were Black, we had a really robust Black History Month programming. And so I wrote a new play every year at UF until I graduated. And then when I came back to Atlanta, I met Carol Mitchell Leon at V103's For Sisters Only event. I was like, how do I get involved in this? And so she sent me to the one of the precursor organizations that became Working Title Playwrights. That's when I started taking my playwriting seriously. Before, it felt more like a hobby, but when I started to interact with professionals and they say, this is really good. Or if I submitted it for, talking about the external validation, we were talking about that earlier, or if I submitted it to a competition and it won, I was like, oh, okay, I'm a professional playwright now. So that's what got me going.
And I'm glad that you just connected that, right? Like, I am the professional, and I was going to say that, we talk about inner ally here on the podcast, and you said it wasn't until I started encountering professionals, and little did you know you were the
Mm-hmm.
professional helping other young people. So I love stories like your story. They're so
Thank you.
inspiring. And in the midst of all the celebrations and actually, before we go on, let me go back to you wrote a new play every year in college and you didn't think that you were there yet.
No, I mean, because I didn't take, beyond my drama class in high school, which again,
Mhm.
still in my mind,
Yeah.
was an easy A casual thing, right? I didn't take drama in college. I didn't really participate with the college's theater department. This was something that I did as a part of community,
Mhm.
the Black Student Union. And it
Was your
wasn't,
community activism?
Yeah.
You
it
had it
was,
under a different bucket, even
Mhm.
though, yeah.
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 And
And
your mom
so
was an English teacher.
I know, and my paternal grandmother was a librarian, and my
See?
maternal grandmother told um audible storytelling. I can't think of
Women
it.
connected in wisdom.
Mm,
You see this, Christine? It's what I love,
right?
Candy. It's always like when you actually this is actually how I accidentally stumbled upon my purpose. It's always connected through generations when we just lay it
Mhm.
out. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and
I have
I
another
really
connection I want to name real quick before I forget. My middle name is Linnell, and I don't know that I've ever heard another person. My aunt has that name, but when you said Linnell Chance, my whole body just
Hmm.
lit up because I don't know that I've ever heard that name spoken outside of my family. So thank you for
Hmm.
that. I want to honor her, and what a wild thing.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
welcome. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love connections like that. It happens all the time in my work, actually. And so I'm glad to add this to that experience. Um, my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, that was a librarian, and I think also taught English in some ways. She passed away when I was 13, and I only recently learned that she produced plays at the school where she was. No one ever told me that before. So that was exciting for me to learn. And I said, okay, okay, I get it honest. All right.
I love that. And so what I was gonna say too, before we gave some moments for the celebration of everything that you've done already. Let's talk about the connection, right? Because we keep going. And as women, we're doing all this stuff, 5 classes and 3 jobs. And in college, I was doing all this stuff. And after I've been doing this, right? But before the show, we were talking a little bit about the trauma that happens and it happens on a
Mm.
daily basis, right? What happens when you're like, hey, I'm an Amazon bestseller and somebody responds the wrong way, or maybe you're questioning how you share it, you know? So I would love for you to talk a little bit more about it's in your bones and how you help people deal with that on a daily basis as they share their voice.
Tell me more about your question. Like if someone comes to me with some sort of experience that is not affirming or something like that.
No, not necessarily. So what I mean is how you were saying the daily trauma that might happen sometimes, right? And knowing that it's in our bones and actively being intentional about
Mm.
being whole, operating from a well place and doing that while still keeping your voice intact.
I think what I know about awareness is that you cannot make anyone become aware. That is part of our own individual journeys. And we know this from the work that we do with addictions, no matter what your drug of choice is, whether it's food, sex, what we categorize as drugs. Um, we cannot, or work, we can overwork, gambling, all those kinds of things. As much as we love the person who may be living with the addiction, until they come to the awareness themselves, I guess what we do helps maybe, but it's not until they decide I need to manage my life differently that any significant and sustainable change happens. And so, um, when I talk with other wellness practitioners about how do this is, we're chopping it up and we're coming into these realizations and stuff like that. How do we share it? How do we help people be better? Because we know what we know about individual awareness, I've decided the way that I approach that is I put out content, and thank God for the internet and stuff like that. Now it's more accessible to people. So right now I'm in this meditation kick. I am recording and publishing meditations that live primarily on YouTube, and I promote it on my social media sites so that when people are ready, the content will be there and they can engage in it, and then contact me or any of the other practitioners for more information, or when they're ready to take steps. So I think that's how I do it. And what I was going to say earlier, you were talking about the social justice um, being a part of the plays that we produced and the artistry that we produce. I say, okay, I've written all these plays about social justice topics. Let me do something fun and light. And inevitably, then these themes of social justice start to come through. And so I've accepted that as a part of it, and I let it live alongside. So you're absolutely on point with that. So that's what I do. I do what I
I
do,
love that.
put it out there, and let it be for the people when they're ready.
Can
Yeah.
you tell folks your YouTube channel? So we'll have
Mhm.
it in in the show notes, but can you tell folks listening your YouTube channel to find those meditations?
Yes, Candi Dugas and Associates. And
Okay.
YouTube is coming up now. They'll let you have handles
Yep.
on there. So I just recently created the handle. It's called Candi Dugas Collective because we're going to be changing the name really soon. So you should,
Awesome.
if YouTube's made it live, then it's going to be at Candi Dugas Collective. If not, just Google Candi Dugas and Associates.
I love that. And we'll have that in the show notes so folks can click on that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Because our new handle is going to be Women Connected in Wisdom.
Yeah,
Shocking. But y'all.
All right. Okay, so more about what you were talking about, Candy, with because what we like to do too, right, with the eight dimensions of wellness is show people how they're intersectional in ways that you might not think. So right now we're talking about the true colors and the monologue competition. We talked a little bit about it's in your bones and things that you do to help balance that. But how else is your work connected to physical wellness?
Well, I think I did a video about why Black people need to meditate. I don't. I think that I think that meditation is a wonderful tool for helping us to relax and to be in touch with ourselves that too many Black people do not practice and aren't aware of. It's if we're the typical Black person, we're not monolithic, but if you're the typical Black person, you probably came up through the church in some way, through Protestant church in some way, and meditation is not a part of it. That's for Eastern traditions. That's what white people do. That's all these other kinds of other labels that you might put on it, and we're not that familiar with it. But so I did that video on why we should meditate, and it talked about the post-traumatic stress and post-traumatic slave syndrome that we have experienced through our ancestors, because if the trauma has not been cleared or healed, we've inherited it. And then on top of that are all of the tension and the stress that we have of living while Black. And what that creates for us is living in a perpetual flight or fight mode. That's a temporary thing that our body does to protect us. But if we can think about what that means to live like that day in and day out, and the stress that it puts on our bodies and our systems, they go into overdrive, and it creates this awful, awful cycle within ourselves. Cortisol is our primary stress hormone. And when we have that operating in abundance, it creates these conditions that lead to anxiety, depression, digestive problems, headaches, muscle tension and pain, heart disease, heart attack, high blood pressure, stroke, sleep problems, weight gain, memory, and concentration issues. And what really pisses me off about this is that Black people get blamed for having poor health. And then we can blame ourselves for having poor eating habits, not exercising, whatever, whatever, when there is a nugget of our conditions that rests in the fact that we live in perpetual fight or flight, and our cortisol levels are all over the place, and it creates these conditions. And so you can't blame the victim for this. So along with why Black people should meditate, I also have a video uh, that's my first meditation. Call it that somebody before me coined this meditation. It's a combination of a bedtime story and a meditation. And so if we're not sleeping at night, um, what can we do during that time? A lot of experts say get up, move away from your bed, and go to some other place in your house. Da, 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 da. So I'm offering this meditation as something that you can do. Don't toss and turn in your bed. I mean, there's some other things like create a certain kind of atmosphere for you to sleep, yada, yada, yada. But if you're in the middle of it and you're waking up in the middle of the night and you're scrolling through on your phone, um, stop scrolling and taking in stimulation that way. Go and find a tool that can help you release. And then if you fall asleep, you've got some good stuff coming in. So if you're watching the TV, you don't have any idea when you fall asleep what's going to be on after in the next show. Da, 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 da. This way, you're taking in some things that will be helpful to you and contribute to your overall health. Those are the kinds of things that I'm doing to help us with that. And I'm working on a longer meditation. It's going to be like an hour long, and then I'll loop it so it can last for about 3 hours. Because sometimes you can wake up at 3 in the morning. You're not going to go back to sleep. It gives you something to accompany you. And I like to hear voices of color.
Mhm.
So I'm contributing to the library of voices of color so that I can hear a voice like mine in my head. Um, and it can take in more good stuff like that. It'll expel all the other stuff that's not helpful, that's even toxic, and contribute to our overall health.
That is so awesome. Are you so that's on YouTube, right?
Yes,
Are you
yes.
on Insight Timer yet?
I am not. I am
Okay.
not. I've looked at those, because you want to see what else
Mhm.
is out there. I've
Right,
looked at
right.
those, and had in the back of my mind, how do I get on Insight Timer? But right now, I'm building the library because I think
Nice.
I have maybe 11 or 12 meditation videos total,
Nice.
over time,
Yep.
and maybe 5 that are more recent. So I'm working on building that library.
So cool.
I love that. I love that, especially the meditation, because I have a degree in psychology, so I'm really intentional about screen time, not 30 minutes before I go to bed.
Hmm.
Hopefully my phone shouldn't even be near me, and we try not to should and do that to ourselves
Yeah.
about rules that we have to follow. But I definitely try to have the stimulation away. But sometimes you might be on the phone, or if I do remove myself from the space that I sleep, which is why they say that, right? If you're sleeping and relaxing in this area, you need to be active somewhere else. I will be scrolling. So I love to have a meditation to listen to, and the longer version, the shorter version. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Absolutely. And give me some feedback. Let me know what you'd like to hear, what's
I
helpful
love that.
to you. And
Oh,
the social justice part of that pings my ears when I
yeah.
read, how we should create a life that's whole and healthy.
Mhm.
I'm aware, as much as I can be, of how inaccessible that is, from the people who need it the most. Some people are living in one rooms and they don't have separate rooms for active and inactive. They don't have access to quality food. They live in food deserts, and so it's, I don't know how to overcome those barriers. I just recognize that they are there.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying, and that's part of what I love about Still Point, Christine's first book. She talks about separating, and you have to do that. Like, what's in my control, and
Mm,
what is outside of my control, that I have to, for me, give to God and let go of, because I don't hold the whole world in my hands.
yeah.
But I think that what you're doing is amazing, because it is the ripple effect. It is the ripple effect of the person that might only have a cell phone in their one bedroom apartment, will be walking down the street next to that homeless person who doesn't have a phone, and be able to give them that space or the light or whatever they got from it, because they got it from you. And that's the ripple, and
Yeah.
the way that we exponentiate our influence, and it'll take care of itself. But it's so important, because, and I mentioned it a couple of times on the different shows. I read this book after 1 year coming back from New Jersey, that my boyfriend's grandfather gave me, about the anti-lynching culture um, in America. Was it? No, I think I'm getting the name of the book wrong, but it was talking about the culture of silence, right? Around lynching, around slavery, around everything that's happened. And so, as a psychology person, I'm thinking about conditioning, right? I'm like, that makes perfect sense. If we're not talking about all this stuff, of course, we're not talking about almost anything, right?
Mhm.
Because if this is very important and I can't bring it up, or I bring it up and something happens or nothing happens, how is, just like the question in the classroom, like you said, somebody asks a question, it's going to shut it down. What does that mean? But that doesn't go away, that goes somewhere, right? So we're talking about goes internally, maybe for
Mhm.
generations. If we don't know how to clear it, we don't know how to process it, we don't know how to verbalize it, that means there's things that we know and don't know that we're dealing with. And we know that on a biological level anyways, right? But the emotional and the spiritual and the physical part of it is why I'm so happy that you're doing what you're doing with the high schoolers, and why Shaylo Glow is so important. And sometimes it's been difficult for me to connect that,
Mm,
how you checking on your body on a daily basis can do all this stuff for you. But that's how it's like, where am I at? Just like Christine says, touch a part of your body that feels good. That's
mhm,
interplay, right? Touch a part
mhm,
that might have a little bit of pain, and breathe in between those two places. And what do I need to do next? And we might want to conquer the whole world, but that's all I have control over, or I might have time for that day. So it's going to have to be okay, and we keep going to the next one.
absolutely. Yeah. That's
I
very
keep
nice. That's good stuff.
I keep circling back around to something you said at the very beginning, Candy, about how we have to identify there's a problem, right? I was thinking about this. I was thinking about generational trauma, and we talked a little bit before the show about the book The Body Keeps Score.
Mhm,
And I've been having conversations this week. I'm in Texas doing some elder care, and my dad was a Vietnam vet and never had therapy from that. Never had, and I'm seeing the results 30 years later. Well, that's not
mhm,
true. 50 years later. How old am I now? Um, because I was born when he was overseas. But just recognizing when we don't identify that there's a problem, that there's a wounding, that there's and especially what you're saying, Shannon, and what you reference, Candy, about slavery and the atrocities that happen every day still, and the anti-blackness in America, and that fight or flight. Because when you said that, of course, I was thinking about my dad and the fight or flight in Vietnam,
mhm,
and that never really healed from that. And we're seeing the effects on his body 50
mhm,
years later,
mhm.
and way too young. But you know, I I was trained as a therapist, and I've been asking for therapy for years, and they're like, "Oh, we don't provide that, or we don't provide that." I think they're getting better in some systems, but I don't know, this whole last 2 weeks, I've been thinking about the VA system, and I've been thinking about our healthcare system.
Mhm.
And when you said that, it really resonated with me about blaming the victim, and that, especially Black people in America are blamed for their heart condition and this or that, and they talk about what they eat, and whew, y'all, like, we got some work to do. Like, we got some serious work to do around these systems.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and so much so I remember, I went to one of my professors' office hours in college, and I said, "I don't know what to do." The education system, the healthcare, all these systems we were just naming, that I see things and opportunities that I would like to address, right? And now as an entrepreneur, it makes sense. You see the problem, you provide a solution. But I said, I don't know what to do. How am I going to be all these places? And he said, well, you can either work inside the system or outside the system.
Mm.
And that really helped me. So sometimes I'm in it, sometimes I'm out of it, depending on what we're talking about in the season. um, but that's how I see it. And again, the ripple will go out, and if we operate our best from a healed place, then we do the best we can, and the rest of it will take care of itself. But I hear what you're saying too, Christine, about seeing the results later, and what does that mean to process it. And um, that's why I'm thankful for our conversations that we have too. But again, women connected in wisdom, right? So I do my part, and then
Yeah.
Candy, Dr. Dugas been doing something completely different and helping on her side. Christine's been to the UN and all around the world doing different stuff, and then together, okay, I can rest a little bit more. I can sleep and listen to a bedtime meditation
Yeah.
because I know somebody else has got it, and there's some hope.
right.
You know.
Well,
Absolutely.
what gives me hope is what you're doing, Candy, with the youth, and like introducing these monologues and them having their voice. Like, I know the power of theater and the power of giving somebody their voice and being able to tell their story. Like, whew, it took me years to be able to start telling my story and be, therapy and years and all the things, and that I had the privilege and access to those tools, right? When I realized, oh, wait, the world doesn't, I gotta look at that, right?
Yeah.
And just, I don't know, I'm in awe of the work that you're doing with the youth. And how can listeners support you in this work? Is there something they can do to support this valuable work?
Well, if there are listeners out there who would like to financially support this work, you can go to a couple of places. One, you can go to truecolorstheater.org, and since we just finished celebrating the 20th anniversary of producing artistic excellence at the intersection of social consciousness and activism, you can donate there. And I don't know, but you might be able to specify that the gift is for the next narrative monologue competition and for high school students. We're just getting started with this season. It will culminate at the end of March, March 24th through 26th. March 26th is the competition for the Atlanta Regional um, portion of this whole national process that we're a part of. And we'll send our top two winners to New York, and the students expenses, all of those are paid by the program. They get to perform and compete at the historic Apollo Theater. And as Jamil likes to say, they get to rub the stump that so many before us have rubbed. They have workshops. They go to a Broadway play. And so if you'd like to support that financially, you can do that that way. You can become a subscriber. Uh, True Colors makes sure that we produce plays about Black people and that are important to our history. We're in the middle of what's called the Sankofa seasons. Sankofa is an African ideology that we have to look back in order to know how to move forward. And so we're reclaiming our narratives and all of those kinds of things. And so support this work with your dollars and or get on our mailing list so that you can know about what's going on, and that helps as well. For the work that I do, you can support the artistry. I call it the artistry of Candi Dugas. You can support that and donate that. And it can be tax deductible if you do it through my fiscal agent, which is Fractured Atlas. I don't know a direct link for that, so maybe I can get with y'all and put it in the show notes, and
You bet.
you can support the work that I do because I enjoy the fact that I'm able to help bring artistry to the community and in ways that we can move beyond experiencing the performance to actually making a difference in folks' lives.
Mm.
And you mentioned in my bio, that's where the work with Morehouse School of Medicine comes in. It's really, really sad how states like Georgia, there's one other state that's particularly hard on fathers, especially if they're not married to the mother of their children,
Mhm.
when they try to be a part of their children's lives. And so Fathers Matter ATL is an initiative that's about making father-friendly spaces for
Mm.
dads, especially dads of color and especially Black dads. So
Mhm.
I
Yes.
always got my fingers in the hands of, and in the pot of something like that. So that's
Yay! I'm so glad you do.
Yes,
yeah, thank you.
and I wanna give a little space for that too, right? Because we're Women Connected in Wisdom, and even though we have Connected in Wisdom Press, ways that we are expanding out to make sure that the men know that they are included, I just wanna give some space for it, right? Christine, you were talking about your dad. I think I wrote it in the book. So a lot of times we talk about my mom being sick and then passing away, but my dad had cancer too, and my dad is actually who raised me. So for me growing up as a young lady, we're talking about the single moms. My dad is out here every day, like making it work. And no energy against my mom because that wasn't the situation. But it was, what about the credit for the men? So the men being well and them having their voice so they can articulate what their needs are and where they need to start to get better, I think is priceless as well, of course, because everything we do as women is also to benefit them and the families and everything else. So I'm super
Absolutely.
excited to be connected.
Mhm.
Ooh, so Candy, every week we do a wisdom in action. So it's an actionable item related to the dimension of wellness that we're talking about. So for this week, the next 7 days, what are you doing for your personal physical wellness?
I also mentioned before we started the show that I
Yes.
joined a kickball league. I have,
Yes, you did.
yeah, that was my favorite game that we played in PE and so I hadn't played kickball in decades. And so
Oh,
uh, I joined the league. It's Go Kickball, right? And I think they're in
mm,
several cities across the country. And then we've got several leagues across Metro Atlanta, and it's been a blast. So in the next 7 days, we're going to play. We're going to have our playoffs on Sunday.
mhm.
And then I've also been enjoying well, you asked me what I'm getting ready to do. So I'm getting ready to slow down a little bit because the last several days have been very, very full of wonderful theater events, celebrating with True Colors, their 20th anniversary, celebrating with the Atlanta theater community with our Atlanta Tonys called the Susie Bass Awards.
Mm,
So then moving into a little bit of downtime before we go into December, spending time with family, enjoying the fall, which is my favorite season,
mm,
wrapping up real good and going to just hang out in the park with my dog Xena, doing things like that that I enjoy. That's what
yeah,
I'll be doing over the next 7 days.
yeah. Oh, I love that. For me, my hashtag what did I say? Ooh, I like the work up to it. We were talking about Christine's kickball story before and revving up to it and stretching and making sure that we're mindful. So we have a lot of stuff coming, right? We're about to start the book tour. We're about to do the
Mm,
retail space. I'm about to rev up this production and everything else. So slow incremental steps and building the system so sustainable is what I'm working on.
I love that, Shannon. Stretch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think my hashtag this week is going to be rest and ground because I
Mm,
will be traveling home tomorrow after 2 weeks of doing a lot, and so that taking the time to rest and renew before I jump into the next thing. And so that's going to be my wisdom in action because often I have a history of going from one thing to the next, and my body is very clear with me right now. Oh, when you get home, you got to rest. So that's what
mhm.
I'm going to do.
Love that.
yeah, good.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dugas, for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you about everything
Hmm.
you have going on. I'm looking forward to, I want to come on March 26th to the Atlanta Regional Competition. So
It's
I'm
gonna
going
be
to
great.
see if we can make that
I
a
wanted to
reality.
ask, is it open to the public? Can
Oh
we get
yeah,
tickets and come?
absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Come
Cool.
yeah.
and hear some
And
monologue.
yeah, yeah, please do. It's something about uh young people. I mean
Right?
younger than college, right?
Right.
It's about the aha moments and their growth and how passion comes through them at
Hmm.
their age in this physical life that is
Hmm.
very moving.
Mm,
So yes, please stay in touch. That's another reason to join the True Colors mailing list is
okay.
to
Yes.
stay in touch with those dates that are coming up, and then the website will have more information the closer we get to March. We'd love to see y'all there in the audience.
Oh, it'd be so
Yes.
fun. Oh,
Yeah,
let's
Yeah,
do it,
right.
Shannon. Let's do it.
Yes, let's
That'll
do
be
it. Let's plan
fantastic.
it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming and chatting with us. We are
Yeah.
so grateful to be connected to you and the work that you're doing in the world, and we're lucky because we're local, so we may
Yeah.
get to see you out and about, and just so grateful for doing incredible work, but also doing incredible work in Atlanta. Like,
Yeah.
you're
whoop whoop.
welcome. Well,
Thank
and
you.
thank you so much for
Yeah.
having
So
me. I
good.
love what y'all are doing and connecting women in wisdom, and being wise and well is what one of my mentors, Dr.
Mhm.
Velma Love, calls it as far as our
Mhm.
ancestors, but we can be wise and well too. So
Mm.
thank
Absolutely.
you. Yeah.
Thank you
All
so much.
right. See you
See
soon.
you soon. Whoo,
Oh my
so
goodness.
good.
Such
So
a good
good.
conversation.
Yeah.
I'm so
Full of
full. I like what I want. There's things I want to still just like savor out of that conversation.
definitely
And
more
yes to
conversations
us
to
putting it
have.
on our calendar and going to that. I love when
Yeah.
it's a local guest. I mean, I love
Yeah.
talking to people all over the world, but when it's somebody local, you're just like, "Ooh, we get to
Yeah.
be a part of their work. Like that's cool. Let's show
Yeah.
up and do that, right?"
Yeah. And I mean, soon we're gonna be going to state and stuff, doing
Right?
these book tours and seeing our different people. So maybe Soteria, we got out there, we get out there to New Mexico, up there to
Oh,
Canada,
so
the
Terry
lowlands,
is in
right?
North Carolina.
Oh,
She's up, remember? She's got the coffee shop in North Carolina, which we
I
need
want
to
to see
totally
it.
road trip to
Yeah, we need
there.
to go
Let's
see
do
your
it.
art. So
So,
I'm excited. The talk about physical wellness was great. And it's just reaffirming for everything that we do. Hey, okay, this happened today. How did I start the day? How do I want it to go? What actually happened?
mhm,
And then what do I need to do to make sure I have what I need at the end of it?
yeah, I love it.
Yes. Yes.
As always,
Okay.
my friend, I am so grateful to be in connection with you. And oh,
Me
you know
too.
what we haven't told listeners yet?
What have we not told them?
We're taking next week off.
Oh, yes,
We
we're
are
not
going to
going to
take
be here.
next week off because we do need to rest. And
Yeah.
so, if you are used to joining us live, y'all, we got 92 episodes that you
Hmm.
can check out. And
Yes.
we only know of 2 to 3 people that have listened to all 92. So, go back and catch up with one you missed.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to get ahead of it, also, if you like to
Right.
put Women Connected in Wisdom on your schedule every week, 2 weeks in December, we will be gone as well, okay? So the
Right.
17th, the next Wednesday after that, we're gonna be traveling and resting and
Mhm.
rejuvenating, like Christine said,
Right.
and we'll be here after that.
Well, and I just want to say to our listeners, we adore y'all and we're grateful you're here with us. And
Super
last year we
grateful.
didn't do a good job of taking time off, and we are practicing what we talk about. So that is why we're being upfront with it, and this is
Yeah.
what we're doing. And
Yeah.
we're going to miss you because
Of
this is a
course.
part of our routine, and we're
Mhm.
going to look forward to being renewed when we come back. And
Yeah.
just so grateful for everything we've been receiving and people that have been just commenting and giving us support. And know that if you haven't already, y'all, like and subscribe. It makes a difference where you listen to our podcast, to like and subscribe so you know when we're coming live. And also, if you love us, leave us a review because
Yeah.
it helps.
Yeah, it does. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us for the first episode of season 11. We will see you live. Oh, no, the week after next. I usually say next week, but we will see
Right?
you live the week after next, live at 5, excuse me, at Eastern Standard Time. In the meantime, be well, be wise, be whole. We'll see you soon.
Grateful.